My Legends, how you doing today? So we're gonna be doing a video by Randy T. White privilege explained in 5 minutes. So let's see what kind of nonsense he's spewing today.
What's good? My name is Charity Croft. Have you ever been called unprofessional for wearing your hair the way it naturally grows out of your scalp?
Actually, when I went to Target and all that, I had to get my hair to a certain length, and there was rules about your facial hair and your hair. It must be kept trimmed, neat, and to a certain length. It can't go past your backside here, and your facial hair can go all the way down your drip into your chest. You know what I'm saying? So when you're on a professional job site, you have to abide by their rules about grooming, about professionalism and all that. You have to follow those rules if you want to keep that job. To be honest, if you don't want to keep that job, go ahead and wear your hair the way you want. But if you want to keep that job, follow those rules no matter what. Always follow those rules, kids. Always do that when you're trying to get a job. Whatever rules they set, follow those rules no matter what.
Is your race accused of being terrorists for wearing scarves on their heads?
No, to be honest. So how does this prove white privilege? Just because I'm not being accused of like being a terrorist or wearing a scarf on my head. So how does this explain white privilege? This is a really faulty argument to start. Your beginning argument was faulty, and the middle argument is also faulty as well. So 2 for 2 and a strike. Ooh, you're down to your last out.
Have you been stereotyped as a thug, terrorist, gang member, ghetto, lawn mowing guy, rapper, or immigrant for no reason at all when you were just standing there?
No, not really. No, to be honest. But it's all about presentation. People are gonna be idiots no matter what. People are gonna be idiots. Let people be idiots. So if people accuse you of all those things, just let them do that. People are idiots no matter what. So this doesn't prove white privilege, dude. But just people are idiots no matter what the race is. To be honest. So if people say those things, just let it wash off your back, dude. Just wash off your back no matter what. Just let people be idiots, okay?
Well, if you said no to most or all of those questions, then you, my friend, have what is called white privilege. White privilege.
Anything, my friend. You really didn't. You just said mostly arbitrary things, and say if you're not being accused of those certain things, you automatically have white privilege. That's not how you prove an argument, my friend. That's really faulty. Really, really faulty for your argument. You're 3 for 3 and strikeouts, man. Oh my gosh, you struck out on all 3 batting turns, man. It was a really faulty argument you presented in the beginning, middle, and in the side as well, leading in. If that's how your argument's going to be, and they're going to be this faulty, oh my lord, I can't wait to see the rest of this video. It's going to be really faulty and really easy to debunk.
Yes, Jacob, white privilege. He sings well. That's all the black privilege we get. Oh, and also he plays basketball. It all started with a basketball, y'all. But we're not talking about rapping, dancing, singing. Black privilege.
Just get on with it, okay? Get to your point, all right? Stop with this unfunny comedy skit, okay? Get to a point.
We're talking about world dominating, culturally appropriating, ruling almost every nation, white privilege.
You're using Donald Trump. Well, he's the leader of the free world. There's nothing you can do about it, to be honest. 2, you're using Katy Perry, but she's supposed to look like an Egyptian, you moron. She's supposed to look like an Egyptian. Oh my gosh, that's not an example of white privilege at all. That's not an example of white privilege. She's supposed to look like an Egyptian, my friend. Oh my lord. Your arguments are laughable.
Now, what in tarnation is white privilege? I'll work for everything I ever got, I tell you what.
You're accusing one side of being stereotypical, and next you be this really stereotypical. Hypocrite much? And stop with the unfunny comedy. You're killing comedy very, very slowly.
I'm sure you did, Mr. or Mrs. White Privilege, but your skin made it way easier. White privilege means no one questions why you got into that really, really great school or how you got that really, really great job. It's just assumed that you're highly qualified.
The reason they got into those jobs in the first place and into those schools is because they worked really hard. all their lives, okay? They worked really hard in school to get into that really good college that they wanted to get into, that higher, like Ivy League college. They worked really hard on all their high school years. They didn't mess around. And with that job, they worked really hard in college and they made sure their resume was impeccable so that they can get hired, to be honest. And what are you saying? Do you not forget about affirmative action that gets black people into like schools and like jobs and everything? Did you just forget about affirmative action, to be honest? Did you just forget about that and just say white people have white privilege? No, you have affirmative action privilege is what you got, man. You really have affirmative action privilege.
White privilege is living in a country in which 87% of the lawmakers look like you, despite the fact that your race makes up nowhere near 87% of the country.
That's here, my friend. Americans in like 2017 is non-Hispanic whites. The number 196,817,552. The percentage 63.7% of the population. Non-Hispanic blacks 37,685,848. 12.2%. Non-Hispanic Asian 14,465,124. 1.7%. Non-Hispanic American Indian or Alaska Native 0.7%. Non-Hispanic Native Hawaii or Pacific Islander 0.2%. Non-Hispanic or some other race 0.2%. Non-Hispanic or two more races 1.9%. Hispanic or Latino 16.3%. Now in the totals, white American 72.4%, Black American 12.6%, Asian Americans 4.8%, American Indian or Alaska Native 0.9%, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander 0.2%, some other races 6.2%, two more races 2.9%. So you're wrong about whites being 70%, 78% of the population. They're 72% of the population, to be honest. As far as like 2017 stats show, I will even link to like the article that I found on this, on the demographic of the United States as far as 2017 is concerned. So they're 72% of the population, my friend. So you're completely wrong about that, to be honest. So that doesn't prove white privilege at all.
White privilege is Googling the word beauty and it's showing hundreds of pictures of white women.
White privilege is Googling the word God and it's showing hundreds of pictures of white men.
When I search beauty, you get a variety of different ladies. They're beautiful ladies at that, but you get a variety of different ladies, not just white ladies. You get a whole assorted bunch, man. You really do. And about the paintings, they said that God was about white men. That's because the paintings were painted in France and Italy, which were majority white at the time. To be honest, um, they were the majority white. See, French and Italy. What? Yeah, because the majority at the time were like white. Oh, Italian art. See, since ancient times, Greeks, Etruscans, Celtics have inhabited the South, Century, North, Italian persuasion, respectively. Very numerous rock drawings have been go back to 8000 BC. Rich remains of question art from thousands of tombs, Greek colonies, Western Arico, and elsewhere. In other words, like with the Italian art at the time, it's mostly Italian and French, who were, say it with me, white at the time, my friend. So you say, oh, it's just white people. Yeah, at the time there were majority white people in those countries. So what's your point here, my friend? What is your actual point?
White privilege means you don't have to worry about being monitored in a store because you look like you steal stuff.
White privilege is being 6 times less likely to be arrested than black people.
If you're looking like suspicious and you're walking around like this, like with a hoodie around and looking suspicious, they're gonna follow you and say, "Oh my gosh, he might be stealing something, man." For real. Is it profiling a little bit? Yes. But don't look that way and nobody would accuse you of that, to be honest. Don't look that way and nobody would accuse you of that, to be honest, of course. And about the whole arrest, more white people are arrested than black people are, to be honest. And more white people are shot than black people. So there's your theory there. This proven right there.
White privilege is your history being taught as a part of the core curriculum and mine being offered as an elective.
I'll explain this very simply for you to understand. In the US, you're gonna learn US history, especially if you're in the US. If you're in Canada, you're gonna learn Canadian history. If you were in China, you're gonna learn Chinese history. If you're in North Korea or in the Koreas, you're gonna learn Korean history. If you're in Japan, you're going to learn Japan history. If you're in Germany, you're going to learn German history. You see where I'm going with this? Whatever states you're in, that's the history that you're going to learn as part of the core curriculum, my friend. For real. How do you not know this? It's very, very simple. My lord, it is very simple for you to understand.
White privilege is reading a history book that doesn't start off with you being a slave or a barbaric savage.
Slavery was very bad. We all know that slavery was very bad, my friend. We all know this as a human species, that slavery was one of the most terrible things on earth. So what is your point, my friend?
White privilege is being able to teach history only from the perspective of the colonizer.
The first half of the 1600s, Barbary corsairs, pirates from the Barbaric coast of North Africa, authorized by their governments to attack ships of the Christian countries ranged all around Britain's shores. Their lantern rig Exibegs, a type of ship, and oared galleys. They grabbed their ships and sailors and sold the sailors into slavery. Alimentary records show that during this time, the few corsairs plundered the British shipping pretty much at will, taking no fewer than 446 vessels between 1609 and 1616, and 27 more vessels from near Plymouth in 1625. As 18th century Joseph Morgan put it, this I take to be time when those corsairs were in their zenith. So in the 1600s, the barbaric pirates who were black took white Christian people who were British and held them hostage and then sold them into slavery in the 1600s. So you want to tell me that slavery was just about enslaving black people? Am I pitting races against each other? No, I'm just telling you. When you bring up, oh, it's just white people that enslaved black people. No, black people who were the barbaric pirates enslaved British Christian people who were on their ships, and they sold them into slavery, my friend. So when you're trying to tell me about that, I'm going to tell you about this, okay? I just wanted to give you a little history lesson, all right?
Speaking of colonization, white privilege is being able to get lost at sea thinking you're going to India, end up somewhere else that already had millions of people and still be credited as discovering the country.
Meaning of discovery, my friend, he discovered that land, which he thought was India, but it ended up being the USA. He discovered, like, oh my lord, I never seen this before. Holy crap, I gotta tell people. And he ended up getting credit with discovering it because he discovered it first before anybody else, my friend. That's the meaning of why he is credited with it. Not because he's white, it's because he discovered it first, to be honest, and he's the one that took the credit, okay?
In fact, white privilege is when anything that you didn't know about is a new discovery as soon as you notice it.
White privilege means the ability to protest racism, ask for equality, and not be considered a hate group.
Mario. Okay. Let me tell you, BLM was considered a hate group or a terrorist group because they ended up tearing each city they were located in, my friend. They ended up tearing each city that they were located in just because a black person was shot by a white person. But they conveniently ignore black on black crime, to be honest. They conveniently ignore that. Where's the outrage with all that? Or when a white person is shot by a cop? Where's the outrage with that, too? They were labeled a hate group because they said they hated white people, they wanted white people dead, and they said they all wanted all cops dead. That's why they were labeled a hate group. Not because they wanted to fight for equality, it's because they wanted all white people dead and all cops dead. That's why they were labeled a hate group. Not for fighting for equality, my friend. which there is none today.
Privilege is also having a hate group like the KKK be listed as a non-violent Christian organization and not have the rest of your race be labeled as terrorists.
Actually dishonest, huh? Okay, here we go. You were on their website. You just showed it. You were on the KKK's website. Of course they're going to put that on there. You really think they're going to put "we kill black people" on our website? No, they're going to make it sound like they do good things in order to attract people for them to join. You really think they're just going to be that blatantly obvious, like I said before? You really think they're going to be that blatantly obvious? No, of course not. I cannot believe you're being this intellectually dishonest. I don't like the KKK, but you're being this intellectually dishonest really irks me, my friend. Really, really irks me.
White privilege is not having your application thrown out because your name is weird. In fact, white privilege is when anything that's not regular or common to your race is weird.
Employers look at applications based on like your qualifications, your amount of experience, and the schooling that you went to. They don't look at it and base it off your name. They don't look at your name as, let's say, Bang, and say, nah, we're gonna throw that out, or opposite, and we're gonna throw it out. No, they base it on how much experience you have with working, how much schooling you have, like whether you went to high school, college, and stuff, and like how much experience you have in that field, particularly at that certain point. If you're just a fresh graduate out of college, now they're not going to consider it that much. But if you've been in the field for, let's say, 4 to 5 years or something like that, they're going to consider it because you have that experience and they trust you a lot more than they trust a graduate that just graduated college. So they don't throw your application out based on your name. They throw it out based on like, nah, this guy's not that qualified, or he's a fresh graduate, we don't trust him that much. They throw it out based on that, not based on your name, my friend.
White privilege is being able to walk into a church, kill 8 people, then be walked out by police and taken to Burger King. White
surrendered to police, right? That's why he was carried out in handcuffs like that. He surrendered. And do you realize that he was put on death penalty? He was set to be put to death. So what are you talking about? What in the world are you talking about? This is a non-point.
Privilege is not having the celebration of your entire race's contributions to the world relegated to just 1 month because we talk about the cool stuff your ancestors did every month.
I will say the one quote Morgan Freeman said. I don't need it. Why should you relegate my history to 1 month? Black history is American history. That's all I gotta say about that.
white privilege means you want to be told to go back to your country.
White people are not told to go back to their country by Black Lives Matter all the time. Really? You really think it's just a one-sided issue? Shame on you for visiting a faulty argument, my friend.
White privilege is being able to come to a country and literally massacre 90% of the indigenous people and then enslave the other 10%.
My underpoint earlier, the barbary slave trade. It's not just a one-sided issue. Yes, I agree slavery was terrible. Slavery was one of the worst things that ever happened in American history. Whether to black people, white people, anybody that was enslaved in American history, it was horrible. One of the worst things that ever happened in American history. I acknowledge that it was terrible, one of the worst things that happened. But it's not just a one-sided issue, my friend. It's really not just a one-sided issue. And you to present it as a one-sided issue is really dishonest and not really smart.
And then say it is your God-given, manifest destiny to shine from sea to shining sea, so you continue to slaughter the whole country and then give it your own name and your own laws.
It's not a one-sided issue, my friend. You're being intellectually dishonest. It's not a one-sided issue. American history is not a one-sided issue, my friend. There's another side as well that nobody ever talks about because it's pushed to the side. Oh my lord, you presenting as a one-sided issue is really the most intellectually dishonest thing I have ever seen. And it really, really irks me, my friend.
And yet you are never called a terrorist or a warmongering murderer or a psychopath, but instead you get your face literally carved on the side of the very mountains in which you stole.
Side of the mountain, my friend. Look at one of those men on the side of the mountain. Abraham Lincoln himself. He is the one that issued the Emancipation Proclamation to free slaves. And for you to say that he stole those mountains and all those people that stole those mountains is one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen ever to be put on video, my friend. One of those men actually freed the slaves, my friend. And you want to talk about him like that? Man, get out of here.
And thereby glorified forever as not a deranged killer, but a founding father.
Fathers, we wouldn't have the Declaration of Independence. Thus, we wouldn't have any rules or laws to go by in this country.
Who did something courageous and beautiful.
But how can we move forward if we dwell on the past? Plus, I mean, there were white slaves in America too, right?
Little nigga, no, it was not.
What am I?
Well, you do not need to dwell on the past to justify now. The past does not justify now. The white people in our life today did not do what the white people back then do, okay? They didn't do anything, okay? The ones today are not responsible for what they did back then. Second one, there were white slaves in America. Irish slaves and the barbaric trade slaves. Need I remind you, they were both white. They were enslaved. For you to even deny that there was no white slaves in history is ridiculous.
Quite, but there were indentured servants. And in the slave codes of 1705, especially in the act concerning servants and slaves, colonial rulers so graciously awarded the poor whites certain legislated privileges.
Using indentured servant privileges to justify white privilege? What? What? Just. What?
Fact check, tell them what they won. A small plot of land, wages after their sentence was over, the right to sue masters in court, and exemption from public whipping for punishment.
Slavery was bad. Why are you using it to justify it now? I acknowledge slavery was bad. You don't have to pound it into my head. I know it was bad. But why are you using it to justify it now? That has nothing to do with now, my friend. It really, really doesn't.
While at the same time, the legislator wrote down the laws which provided the institutionalized foundations for chattel slavery for Africans.
What's in the chattel slavery package, Chet?
Well, all sorts of horrible things like pulling apart families, sending children, mothers, and fathers in 3 different directions.
Slavery was terrible. Are you going to keep harping on this point? Seriously? Are you really going to keep harping on this point? Slavery was terrible. It was the worst thing that could happen in American history. How many times are you going to keep harping on this point? You're going to keep counting into my head, drilling into my head. I know it was bad. And my last point, you don't think during the Barbary trades that Christian Europeans' families were pulled apart by the Barbary pirates? Really? Oh, you're the most intellectually dishonest person I have ever seen in my lifetime.
Free beatings for speaking in your native tongue, casual lynchings and public beatings, rape, and many other atrocities for a couple hundred years.
Slavery happened back then. It was one of the worst things that can happen in American history. But why are you still harping on this point, my friend? Why? Can you move on to a different point, please?
So bad it's almost good. Really? Of course not. From that time on throughout U.S. history, to be white, even to be poor and white, has meant to have access to certain forms of preferential treatment or privilege.
White privilege. You just harped on the same point for the past 5 minutes. So you really didn't prove anything, my friend. You really, really didn't.
Now, this is not said to make white people feel guilty about their privilege. It's not your fault you were born with white skin, and I get it. You're not your ancestors.
You're making white people feel guilty about what their skin is like. And if you don't feel that way, stop bringing it up. And this whole video was completely pointless then, huh? It was completely pointless.
But whether you realize it or not, you do benefit from it. And it is your fault if you do not maintain awareness of that fact.
That's just stupid.
White privilege is absolutely a thing. And being able to deny the fact that it is a thing simply because it doesn't affect you is even a further testament to its existence.
It's a made-up term that you use and other people have made up. It's not really a thing. don't blame white privilege for people just working hard in their lives. White privilege is not a thing, my friend. It doesn't exist in society, and it has never existed, my friend. Not in this day and age or in this society. It has never existed.
Our world has been purposefully skewed in the favor of white people. And no, you aren't responsible for your ancestors' doings. However, if we do not recognize the problem, then we can never truly remedy it.
Stop making things up. There is no problem. The only problem that you have is you.
The first step to enlightenment is awareness of the darkness.
To be enlightened about, my friend.
If we truly want to live as one, we must first create a world that is good for all. I love you.
What did we learn today? We learned that this guy is pretty much intellectually dishonest, and he tries to disprove white privilege, even though he really didn't disprove it all. It's really fault. He has really faulty arguments to begin with. So that's gonna be it for me, my electrolytes. I will leave a link to the articles I used in this video in the description below. Have a great day, guys, and stay awesome.